Hello everybody, I hope you're doing well. My name's William and this is Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Today we're going to be doing another FSEconomy flight in our Cessna 208. Specifically we're doing the return flight from Sunea Lake back to Anaheim Lake. We've already flown into Sunea from Anaheim, but we are turning around and taking some passengers on the way back. I hope you do enjoy. If you do, make sure to give the video a like. It really does help me out a ton and I appreciate all the support. Also, if you have not subscribed and you enjoy this, want to see more content, consider subscribing to the channel. As always, I appreciate the support. I hope you all do enjoy. Let's jump into it. Welcome on board the 208, everybody. We're parked here at Sunea Lake. We're going to be doing our return flight to Anaheim Lake. The weather has kind of turned south on us as we're getting ready for our taxi for our departure to do the return flight. We're going to go ahead and pull up the client and get this flight started, carrying I think 5 passengers and a decent amount of cargo. The passengers going to Anaheim Lake, the cargo going somewhere else. We're just gonna transport it and get it on its way, get it a little bit closer if somebody wants to take it to its destination. We're gonna go ahead and start our taxi, get our flaps into the takeoff position. I think we're gonna be hand flying it out of here. And using runway 06 for our departure. Going to be hand flying it out over the lake and back up across. You can see the weather. If you watch the flight in, it is getting worse. That's really all there is to say about it. Hopefully it will clear up as we make our way back to Anaheim Lake. But I think we're going to have to kind of play it by ear as far as our plan. At least on this initial phase of the flight. So we're going to taxi all the way down, do a 180, and be ready to go for our departure on runway 6 out of here. I think we're going to be shooting for about 70 knots to rotate on out at 80 knots while continuing to accelerate with a positive rate of climb. We'll go ahead and get our flaps in. As far as altitude to climb up to or anything like that, I still have 5,500. We're going to go ahead and just put 6,000 in, but I don't think we're going to be able to get up to that, at least for the initial part of the flight. So we're going to slow on down here and go ahead and we'll get ready to turn around, but first we're going to go ahead and put our transponder into altitude mode. We're going to get completely lit up here. And there we go, we're ready to turn around and start our way out of here. Line ourselves up. Since this is a grass strip, we're going to hold back pressure the entire time, try and get the nose wheel up off the ground. So if we rotate a little bit earlier than 70, that's just fine with me. And we're keeping it nice and low so we can kind of see what's around us. Just double check one more time, our flaps are in the takeoff position. Everything else looks good, so let's go ahead and hold the brakes. We'll bring that power up, and we'll release the brakes. Alright, power is set. Holding just a little bit of back pressure, a lot of right rudder. Airspeed's alive. Nose wheels up. There's 50 knots. 60. We're up. We're going to go ahead and start to climb. That way we can clear these trees here at the end. Right about 70 knots. Now we're going to lower the nose. We're definitely clear those trees. Lower the nose, keep the climb going just a little bit. Accelerate up to about 80 knots here. Accelerating still with a positive rate, so flaps in. And just make sure we don't sink. continue to climb just a little bit. Let's get up above like 500 feet or so. We're going to fly out over the lake. Just kind of see what the visibility looks like. It's not good. So we're going to fly out over the lake. You saw if you watch the flight in, we flew in through here and back into the airport. So we're going to fly up this lake and then make a left turn, kind of head direct back into Anaheim. And hopefully we can see that the weather is clearing up towards the northwest. We're going to keep all our lights on. And we're going to stay nice and low here. It's definitely not great weather at the moment. It's really kind of crept up on us a little bit, so we're going to continue following a nice low path we have up through here, and once I can cut to the left, we'll go for it. So really we need to make sure that we can get into that valley that we kind of followed on the way up here. Our altitude on the way up here, we wound up cruising at about 5,500 because the clouds were right around the, well, we probably would have been safe at 7,500, but we were kind of getting a little close to them, and they've definitely dropped in just a little bit of time, so. Alright, we're going to have to cut to the left. We might as well do it now while we can see this ridge line, so let's go ahead and cut it to the left here. Let's climb up over, and I see blue sky up in front of us. So we're going to continue climbing just a little bit. Looks like the weather's just kind of descended on this area. Make it out before it gets any worse. It looks like there's a lot of precipitation off our right wing up there. Glad that's not over us right now. And yes, blue sky up in front of us.
500.
We're going to keep it nice and low until we're out of the area. But this should work just fine. We're going to pass right back over Charlie Alpha Golf 3 as well. Cool little airport that I want to check out at some point. I'm not sure we'll have a great visual on it. It's down here somewhere. This weather looks so much better. I think it's down and around the corner a little bit, just behind that terrain. Might just catch a glimpse of it. Yeah, a little airstrip. Look at that, it's tucked right in there. That's such a cool little airstrip. Definitely gonna want to check it out, and keep in mind that we want to land on that runway, not this one. That looks like it would be quite challenging. It's nestled right up against the mountains there. Alright, I feel a little bit better about this now that we're clearing off, and it looks like the weather is kind of lifting as we continue this direction as well, so let's go ahead and continue our climb up. We'll go ahead and get our recog lights off and our landing lights off. We're just going up to 6,000. And we're still going to hand fly it for the moment, about 500 feet from our cruise. These clouds look like they are pretty close, but we should be fine to go up to 6. And as long as we kind of level out at about 6,000 feet and everything looks like it's going to be good to go, we'll take a look outside, take in the sights as we continue back into Anaheim. So I think we've got a bit of a headwind for the return trip, so it'll take us a little bit longer to work our way back than it did for us to get here. But yeah, 6,000, we're doing just fine. go ahead and continue on this current heading of about 290. So if we'll actually go ahead and sync this up. We'll go 290, and we'll activate a heading mode. Well, we'll arm a heading mode. And let's go ahead and get it back down to 6,000, and we'll arm the altitude hold. Armed it at 6,100. This means we're on an altimeter, different altimeter setting. So we'll descend down just a little bit more. There it is. It's armed at 6,000, 290. Go ahead and activate the autopilot. We'll get it to hold this for a moment. We'll take in some of the sights, and we'll proceed direct into Anaheim. I just want to keep on 290 so that way we can kind of go in between this higher terrain off to our right and off to our left, fly into this a nice clear patch and this lovely blue sky we have up in front of us. Jumping back in the plane for a minute, you can see in the tail view especially just how dreary that weather looks off to the southeast. I'm glad we managed to make it out of there. Wasn't great looking at all, but it's much nicer now up in front of us. Blue sky and just getting clearer and clearer as we go. I can see if we were going off our left wing at all, it's not looking so great. And off our right, it's a little bit clearer, but as we get kind of back to the right, you can kind of see out the passenger windows back there. Much more gloomy up behind us. So we're about 40 nautical miles now out of Anaheim. Runways 13 and tree 1. The wind seems to be kind of coming out of the north. We've got a headwind at the moment, so we're only doing 162 knots across the ground, showing about 14 and a half minutes out. We're going to plan for runway tree 1, so I'm going to go ahead and set that in the heading bug of tree 10. Also, we're up here at 6,000, but the Anaheim elevation, the field elevation, is just about 3,600 feet. So really, we're only about 2,400 feet above. field elevation, so we don't need to do anything crazy to plan our descent. If anything, we're probably just going to go down to about 5,000 and work our way into runway tree 1, and we should have a good amount of time, be able to get nice and close to the field so we can keep our speed up, not let this headwind hamper us too much. I guess we'll try and make some back by doing that. But anyways, yeah, we're just leveling the cruise. Things smooth out. The terrain gets a little bit better for us as well as we continue up this direction, as we kind of knew from our flight down into Sunia, and some other cool airports around this region that we'll probably be checking out in the future. But nevertheless, 13 minutes now and about 35 nautical miles. We're going to head back outside, enjoy the views, and be ready to do our descent, approach, and landing into Anaheim here shortly. Time to jump back in the plane as we're just about 20 nautical, or 19 nautical miles now out of Anaheim. We're still planning for the approach landing into runway tree 1. Go ahead and get our landing lights on since we're getting nice and close. Wind's almost directly out of the north, still at 10 knots. We're at 6,000 feet, but we're just about 2,000 feet above the ground, so it's probably not going to change too much. Don't need to start our descent just yet, as I kind of talked about just a little bit earlier. We're only about 2,400 feet above the airport elevation, so we've only got to go down 2,400 feet. With that in mind, I think we're going to plan for 5,000 feet on our initial descent down, so we'll go ahead and set that in the altitude selector. But really, we're going to wait to do our descent here for probably until we're showing about 5 minutes out. Once we're showing about 5 minutes out, we'll go down to 5, and then from there we should just be able to kind of line ourselves up and have a nice approach in. It's more on top of, or more about being on top of your altitude and the 208 in my opinion than it is your airspeed. So as long as we're down to a reasonable altitude, we can keep our airspeed up. As always, we go to our approach flaps at or below 150 knots, and then we can go to full landing flaps at or below 125 knots, and those really do add a bunch of drag. And since 150 is so high, I mean, we're cruising now at 161, so just 11 knots up above that. Really, all we got to do is dissipate 11 knots and get those approach flaps out, and they will they'll basically take care of the rest as far as adding drag to the airplane. So let's go ahead and go down. We'll do a nice 1,000 foot per minute descent. We'll pull the power back just a little bit. Don't want to overspeed, but we could keep our speed up for sure. Showing about 12 nautical miles out. I think this is our airfield up here. It looks like a nice, looks like a runway, I would say, for sure. Not that familiar with it just yet, but we have been in and out of here a few times. We'll update the altimeter to the local setting and continue down. We'll be landing runway tree 1. We'll probably be shooting for around 75 knots on the approach. Just about to level out here at 5,000 feet. 10 nautical miles from the field. It's kind of the nice thing about the Caravan. We can get up and go, you know, especially if the wind's in our favor, somewhere around 190 knots across the ground. But as far as being able to come into and land at some of these fields and really drive it in at a pretty decent cruise speed up until you're right up on the airfield, so you're not taken forever on your approaches. There's something like the TBM or even the Mooney. Those planes are much slipperier, much less drag, it seems. So they have the good trait of holding on to their airspeed, but it does mean that you need to be a little bit more aware and on top of managing it. Whereas in the 208, she's kind of a big old box. And all you got to do is pull the power out, and it'll shed off in a hurry. So at least that's the way it is in the sim. We are just about 6.5 nautical miles. This is definitely our airfield. It is. You couldn't even think that the weather just about 60 miles away was what it was, with how beautiful it looks around us here. Glad we're managing to get the return flight in before that weather got any worse. We're going to go ahead and come off of the autopilot, and let's go ahead and clear all of it. And we're going to line ourselves up for tree 1. I'm going to pull the power out so that we're at least down below 150, so we can get those approach flaps working. We don't need them just yet. Just 5 miles from the field, and we're still holding here at 5,000 feet. See, all we had to do was pull the power back just a little bit, and already down to almost 140 knots just by holding our altitude. And once we get lined up here, we'll go ahead and go approach flaps out. And the plane is going to want to balloon up, so you got to kind of nose down a little bit or trim it down. But then even with a descent here, so we picked up a 500 foot per minute descent, we're still slowing with power in as well, so I could pull the power out even more, and now we're down below 125. It's just not as critical in the Caravan to stay on top of your airspeed. It's more about altitude, which is pretty much a factor in every airplane, but alright, we are on final runway tree 1 into Anaheim Lake. We're below 125. Let's go ahead and go full landing flaps. Really add the drag here. Airspeed just sheds off.
500.
There's about 80 knots, so we'll start to creep a little bit of power in. So make sure we come right over the top of these trees. It's a little bit choppy, but we do have that crosswind. About 75 knots. Aiming right for the numbers, and we're going to pull the power out and just gently try and flare here. It's a little too much, so we floated, but give it some left so we stay close to the center line. And I believe our ramp is all the way down here at the end, off to the right. So we'll go ahead and get on the brakes, slow it down a little bit, but we don't need to be in a huge hurry. That's all the way at the end. Alrighty, everybody, welcome to Anaheim. Beautiful weather on the approach, not so much on our departure, but that was a fun return flight. Weather, I mean, even though it's the same thing I had done in the earlier video, just kind of reversing it, the weather change alone kind of made that feel like a pretty different flight. I hope you all did enjoy. As always, let's get clear of these the hold short bars there, and then we'll go ahead and go landing light off, taxi light on, strobe light off, and we can turn our transponder on to standby. Trying to figure out where we want to park here. We're just going to pull up to the left and park it up, log our flight. If you did enjoy the flight, as always, giving the video a like really does help me out a ton. I appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed already and you want to see more content like this, consider subscribing to the channel. I enjoy being able to share these flights with you guys and appreciate all the support. Alright, we're going to call this good for our parking. So let's get the client up. And we are, I don't want to press anything in the client. I've done this enough times, you'd think I'd know. We're just going to press the parking brake here in the sim. And there we go. Everything is logged in the server, so we've been paid for getting them out of that terrible weather so they could come back here. I was going to say, that was a beautiful lake. Who would want to come back? But with that weather, I totally understand. So we got them back here to Anaheim. Plain space back here. There's some more cool airports for us to check out in the region. So we'll be doing that sometime soon. But I hope you all did enjoy this flight. And until next time, bye-bye.